So the Buffalo Bills kick off the weekend, I guess, by making a move for Chase Claypool. Matt Bove, Howard Simon, chatting a little bit of Bills as we get ready for the weekend. Howard, what did you think of the Chase Claypool move? Does it mean anything for the Bills or for you?
First off, I would like to congratulate you for the first time this offseason. Your text to me had nothing to do with players being released. It was actually someone signed by the Bills. So you're making
Yeah.
progress in that. I'm very happy about that. You know, I wouldn't get like super excited about this. I think this is a why not give it a chance player and see if he does anything. I'm not, I saw what you wrote about it. I think it's not even a lock this guy makes the roster. It's
Yeah.
worth it to take a shot. It's not a big financial gamble. You're certainly not giving up assets to get him. If he resembles the player he was in his first year in Pittsburgh, that's a great pickup. But again, if he looks like the guy he was towards the end in Pittsburgh, really didn't do anything in Chicago, granted on a bad offense. He didn't do anything in Miami, not that they really needed him. His numbers have plummeted. So Matt, I'm not sure he makes the roster. If he does, I can't even put him in the top 3 now. He's no better than the 4th receiver.
Yeah, and that's what I think. It's an upside move. The
Yeah.
reward is greater than the risk. There's no harm in trying to take a shot on a guy, even though he's kind of been surrounded by drama for the last several years. I think the Bills have talked so much about culture over the years that should overcome any
Yeah.
potential issues that anybody has. But minutes after Chase Claypool signs, Odell Beckham signs with the Miami Dolphins. Now, Marcelo Louis-Jacques, who used to be on leading the charge, he's reporting it's a $3 million deal with incentives that could get it up to $8 million. I see that, and I wonder if the Bills offered the exact same thing, but he would just rather live in I just don't understand how that would not have been something the Bills would have been interested in. And
Yeah.
now it's like, okay, your division team that you're one of the teams you're competing against just got even better.
Were they interested in him for sure? I would hope they were. That's one of the 2 guys I think if you looked at remaining free agents, I think that's one of the 2 guys that you would have said be nice if the Bills signed him. Again, probably the same thing, right? The 1 year, take a chance. It's not a big investment Miami's making. I'm curious if they did make an offer. I mean, they were interested 2 years ago, right? They looked into him, they talked to him, and it just never came to fruition. So I wonder if they made an offer. If they did, right, how did it stack up versus Miami? Because, the Bills are a better offensive team than the Miami Dolphins. They certainly have the better quarterback. And honestly, if you look at the depth chart, how many targets is he going to get with the Dolphins as opposed to what he might get should he earn a spot here in Buffalo? So I would like to have seen them sign him, Matt. Yeah. And I think it's too bad. I'm not worried about him going to the Dolphins. I'd worry more about Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to freak out about that, though.
But the cupboard is pretty bare here in Buffalo. And, Sal and I just recorded episode of It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. And it always feels like when we do these, there's like a good cop, bad cop. And Sal's always the good cop, and I'm always the bad cop. And I just said, like, I still don't think the wide receiver room is good enough. And then the conversation is, yeah, but Dalton Kincaid's going to get their most target. I don't care about that. I understand that. But I think teams play you differently when you've got legitimate threats at wide receiver. I like Keon Coleman. I like Curtis Samuel. I like Khalil Shakir, but I think they need another guy in that tier and not another Chase Claypool-esque move.
Yeah, and I don't know if that comes. I mean, that guy's probably not sitting out there in free agency. That would leave 2 options. One, a trade. And I know, the stuff was going on about San Francisco. I would think that Brandon Beane is not excited about the idea of giving up future draft picks and assets to trade for a receiver and then possibly hand out a big contract. Like, for example, if it was Ayuk. Or you go into training camp. What did Brandon Beane tell you guys before the draft? The roster doesn't have to be set until week 1. So you go into training camp and you see what happens. And maybe there's a receiver around the league that you like, a veteran who is cut from another team, and you think that's the guy we could bring in here and see what he does for the roster.
But if that doesn't happen, because I'm almost operating under the belief now that it's not going to. I feel like if something was going to happen, it probably would have happened already. I bet they make another move, but not something that's going to really change, I guess, my perception of what they do. Is it enough? Can their offense still be good if their number 1 wide receiver is one of Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, or Curtis Samuel?
I think their offense can still be good for a few different reasons. Is it enough for me? No. The offense is not going to be as good as it has been in the past. It isn't. I don't care whether you like Diggs personally or not. Face facts. He was a number one receiver that you had to worry about, that you had to think about double coverage. You had designed game plans not to let Diggs beat you. There's nobody on the Bills roster, Matt. I'm looking at the depth chart that is that player. I don't care if Dalton Kincaid takes a step up in year two. He's got to show me he could be a freakish tight end who teams have to, the Kelsey type tight end, which, well, that's a lot to ask. He's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Anyway, to your point, they're good. Okay. You have Josh Allen. You still have one of the best quarterbacks in the league. You have James Cook. He's good. You have Kincaid and Knox. You're solid at tight end. The receiving core is okay. I mean, it's gone from great a few years ago with Diggs, Brown, and Beasley, a top three you would stack against anybody in the rest of the league, to, I'm not sure what you're going to get, right? What's Coleman going to do? What's Samuel going to do? We like Shakir. He was trending up, but how's he going to do in a bigger role in this offense? And then it's Mac Hollins, Chase Claypool, KJ Hamler, Andy Isabella. It's not this is on paper, this is the least impressive receiving core since before the Diggs trade, maybe before the Brown and Beasley signings.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to say this might be the second worst wide receiver room they've had maybe since, besides 2018. 2018 was bad. 2019, they go out, they get Brown, they go out, they get Beasley. Like, those guys definitely made a difference. Do you think, though, James Cook is the feature, back now? Dalton Kincaid takes the next step up. Let's say he's, closer to a 100-catch guy than a 70-catch guy, somewhere in the middle there. They use Dawson Knox more. Like, is this something, though, that can win? Or is this just something that you win with it? You know what I mean? Like, are there going to be games when the offense can carry them? Or is this going to be a glorified 2019 where the defense is great and the offense is, hey, every once in a while, we really pop off?
Well, it better not be 2019, because I don't think this defense is going to be great, Matt. I think this season, here's a surprising statement. Everybody can see this. The season will either succeed or fail based on the performance of the Bills offense. And I think they will have to shoulder the load more than they did last year, more than they've done in the past, because of the losses on the defensive side of the ball for them. So, yeah, I mean, is it good enough to win? Yeah. Is it good enough to win a Super Bowl? No. I mean, they couldn't get out of the conference with what they had in the past. I don't see why anybody would look at the roster now and say they're still a legit threat. Now, Joe likes to, our colleague Joe Biscali from Leading the Charge, talks about a mini reset. Okay, well, the Bills are not where they used to be in this mini reset. They've got to get back to that spot. Chase Claypool won't do it, and I'm not sure, barring a trade for a Brandon Ayuk or somebody like that, I don't know what else the Bills could do to get their receiving core to the point where we would all look at it and go, yep, just as good as it was in the last few years.
It's funny because this mini reset that they have, I totally agree with everything that Joe says when he says that. But the one thing that they still have is Josh Allen. And if that guy gets hot at the right time, I don't think there's ever a game you go into where you don't at least have a shot. And it also makes every move that the Bills make a little bit more upside, a little bit more intriguing, because you go, oh, well, what if Josh Allen can get more out of Chase Claypool, out of Curtis Samuel, out of all of these guys that they bring in? I guess my last question for you, though, is as they get into this mini reset, what are you expecting, knowing we are still 4 or 5 months away from football? There's a long time until they play. But what are your expectations?
To your last point, by the way, and that is, right, that was part of the discussion when the Diggs trade went down. It's okay because you have a quarterback who makes everybody else around him better, improves their game. Well, Josh Allen has to do that with a receiving core that on paper does not rank among the top tier receiving groups in the top group of receivers in the NFL. I don't know, Matt. I don't know what to think. I swear I wake up every day thinking it's a playoff team still. It is not a legitimate Super Bowl team, but it's a playoff team. I honestly wrestle back and forth with this question. You tell me what you think, because I don't know yet. Are they good enough to win the division again? And if they do, is it because the Bills are still the best team in the division, or Miami's not good enough because they can't beat good teams and the Jets still have flaws, even if Aaron Rodgers plays, and the Patriots won't be a factor? So do they back into the division, or do they earn the division? And I just don't know what to think of the 2024 Bills. I think they're a playoff team, and I think that's where it ends now.
That's kind of what I think too. I think that right now, all things considered, they're a team that's a 10 or 11 win team. Is that good enough to win the division? Yeah. Is it bad enough to not win the division? Also, yeah. I don't
Right.
really think it matters too much just because, like, this year, it all came down to week 18. If they win, there was still a chance that they didn't get in until obviously that Jags game went final. I think for the Bills, if you get into the playoffs, you always have a chance. I do not care what seed you are. I do not care where you're going. Josh Allen plays like a man possessed in the playoffs, and I'll always give him that opportunity. So I don't even know if it matters. Sure, you want to win the division, but we've seen it for the last 4 years. It hasn't amounted to anything. It's amounted
Right.
to a couple home playoff games, and then the last 2 years, them losing in home playoff games. So it doesn't matter to me anymore. Just like get into the playoffs, and as long as you get in, I think you have a shot. I think the days of talking about the 1 seed are way.
Oh
I don't
God.
want to say they're in the rear view mirror currently, but it's also not something that I think is that far in the distance. Like I could totally see this team in a year after they get more cap space, they use no more draft capital. I could totally see them once again becoming like the team. But I think we're a year away from that, and that goes to the mini reset. They're still good. They got Josh. I think Josh Allen's the second best player in the league. So I'll always, bet on the Bills as long as he's their quarterback.
Yeah.
It's
And
interesting.
no, I would agree. With Josh Allen, anything is possible, but it just looks like a heavier lift for
Yeah.
Josh Allen and company than it was a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Any of these recent teams that we all thought were good enough to get to and win a Super Bowl, but didn't make it. This on paper looks like a much more challenging act for Allen and company.
Yeah, maybe the best way of saying it is for the last couple of years, this will stay the same on the inside. Inside the organization, the expectation is to win the division. Outside with the fan base, the expectation has been to win the division. I think going into this season, the expectation is to make the playoffs. I don't think
Yeah.
winning the division is much of as a foregone conclusion. If you still make the playoffs, then I think most people will be content as long as, hey, it doesn't end in some tragic way. Obviously, that's easier said than done because their schedule's tough. The last thing I'll ask you, so the schedule's probably going to come out either next week or the week after. When it comes out, what is the first thing you look for?
How many night games they play?
Yeah, well, it's going to be a lot. It's going to be
I
a
think
lot.
so, because those are late nights. Yeah, I guess how many night games? I mean, you always look for where the division games are. When do they play Miami? Are they home first against the Dolphins, or are they down in Miami? I'm going to guess there will be a Bills Dolphins game in the final week of the regular season, whether it's
Yeah.
here or there. So I look, I always look at the division games. I always look at that. I look at primetime games. Are they in holiday games? So that's the crazy stuff. I know a lot of fans will look at who's the home opener. A lot of fans that have tickets will immediately go
Sure.
to, do they open week 1 at home? If not, who is the first home game? But yeah, I want to see where are the Miami games, where are the Jet games, and then how things stack up in terms of night games, short weeks, all this crazy stuff that make us overanalyze the NFL schedule.
Yeah. Any big plans for the weekend? Anything fun?
I've got 3 college baseball games to do. Is that considered? I'm not sure if that's a big thing for you, Matt, or
No. You know what? Well, that sounds fun. I mean,
okay,
it's
it is.
well,
Yeah,
is
it's
the
just
weather going to be not? The weather today is gorgeous. I don't know
right.
about this weekend though. I
Maybe a little rain.
recently I recently bought a power washer, and let me tell you, there is
Oh,
a satisfaction in clean. I have a house with siding. Going over the siding and watching
yep.
all of the
Watch the
dirt come
dirt.
off,
Oh
there's
yeah.
like a I've never done that before. I did it around the garage, and now I'm almost looking forward to doing the
Oh yeah.
sides of the house. So this is, I think I've reached adult. It just happened.
So let me tell you, here's what's going to happen. You're going to start wanting to do more with the power washer. You're going to finish the windows and do the siding. You're going to finish the siding and you're going to do the garage door. You're going to do that. Then you're going to look at the driveway and the front walkway and go, yeah, there's dirt in the concrete. This thing will get it right out. You're just going to start washing everything around you with that thing. That's how good those are.
I hate how fast it happened. I feel like I should still be thinking about like, oh yeah, my friends are going out and like this should be a fun weekend. I'm looking forward to it. Or hey, can I
Oh,
go
you're growing
golfing? And
up.
now it's like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm
You're a
gonna go
grown up.
power wash and maybe
Yeah.
if things get really interesting, we'll end up at a chain restaurant somewhere in the North Towns.
Next thing you know, you're going to stop wasting your money on Chick-fil-A and put it away in a college savings account.
Well, it happens fast. Howard Simon, he's got 3 games this weekend, leading the charge. Obviously, we talk to you guys all the time. Thank you. And so now the next time I text you, that means someone did get cut because now
Yeah.
we're kind of
Oh,
counterbalancing that.
you're killing me, Matt. I swear I'm so afraid every time you text me now.